Hello, everyone. Welcome back to school. Hope you're all doing well. This is Samira Omar, the parent liaison. I'm quickly going to go over some principles and some tangible tips that we can be thinking about as we start off virtually and, you know, thinking about also how do we engage with our parents and really partner with them effectively. So, the first thing I just wanted to mention is, oftentimes we think of parent engagement as an add-on. It's just extra work, extra effort that I have to put in. The reality is that it's a very essential component to the work that we do to integrate everything that we're already doing to lift our kids up. So whatever work that you put in, those calls, those emails, um, those things that you're doing to partner with your families are actually in the long term going to decrease your workload, and really make your role as teachers a lot more enjoyable and fulfilling. As a teacher, you're putting in so much energy in lifting your students so that they're successful, and often you may feel like you don't have the time to work with families. Is the return going to be worth it? And we then sideline the need to build a relationship with our parents. But I really, really want to emphasize that any effort that you put in, like I said, is going to really be very fruitful in the long term. Even if you don't see it immediately, it will definitely prove to be very worthwhile in your experience and for your student as well. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that I wanted to, want you to think and reflect on is, how do you personally view our Amana families? Are they a burden? Are they a nuisance? Are they a valuable asset? Just kind of think of that as we move on. So there's four principles I'd like us to go over today. And these will kind of be like our benchmarks in terms of how we even view our role as teachers with parents. The first principle is all families have hopes and dreams for their children. Um, Even in the most challenging interactions between caregivers and teachers, it's important to know that all parties want what is best for the child. This concept of assuming best intent is going to be very, very critical moving forward. You might be skeptical thinking, do all families really have hopes and dreams for the children? I'm sure this is true for some families, but not all of them. I know some parents that um, don't show up for curriculum night, or don't answer my phone calls, or always send emails that are not necessarily positive, and so they don't seem to care about their kids' education. The reality is that this assumption that parents are not invested in their children's future because they don't seem to be engaged with the school, this assumption could not be further from the truth. You will not meet a single parent that does not want better for their child. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that we all, as a team, as teachers, as staff, as parents, we are all hoping and dreaming together for a better future for these students. All right, let's move on. So the second principle is all families have the capacity to support their children's learning. So really there's kind of two ways of thinking about this. So one is a deficit-based thinking. And here it's where we don't necessarily believe that families have the skills to help their children. We see their lack of education or their culture or English skills as impossible barriers to overcome. Strengths-based thinking, however, uh, has an assumption that everyone has a toolbox, okay? And the toolbox has unique tools in it. And teachers' toolboxes just look a little bit different than the family toolboxes. But the reality is, everyone still has a toolbox. The specific instruments inside look a little bit different. But when we come together, I know this is a really cheesy metaphor, but all right, I am so sorry about that. I got a call in the middle of this. Okay, so we are just gonna keep on rolling. When teachers take asset-based approaches, they're really looking for parents, for ways that parents can contribute to their child's learning, and um, to find solutions to challenges. You just need more information. So the more you know about your child's situation, the less likely you are to jump to conclusions. So this is, I mean, really powerful again, because it reinforces that to nourish a whole child, we absolutely cannot do it without the support and the help of and the partnership of parents. So let's move on to the third principle, which is that families and school staff are equal partners. So you kind of want to think about this like a football game. I don't know if any of you are fans, but in football, you have the offense team side of the team, and then you have the defense side of the team within one football team, right? Um, so you want to imagine, if those two parts of the team didn't respect each other, and the skills that they brought to the table, that would not, end up in a solid game. So just like that, we want to think of us as the staff and the teachers, as being one side, and the parents being on another side, but still being on the same exact team. Because the reality is that we do have the same goal. And that goal is that we want to lift our students to become, the next generation of change makers. So our parents have the skills, the ideas, and the knowledge about their children and their community that are of extreme value to us, and we need that. Um, so it's really important because if we as a staff and teachers, if we position parents as being knowledgeable, that gives them the power, and it really validates their role as parents and caregivers in this relationship. But if we as a school position them as being absent, as being unimportant, then there's risk that they feel marginalized, and that's never healthy for our goal of raising their students. Um, so let's move on to principle number 4, which is the last one. The responsibility of cultivating partnerships lies primarily with school staff. So you might be thinking, that doesn't sound right. It should probably be 50-50. Um, you know, Teachers and staff, it's our job to really, really be persistent. And oftentimes families will not just greet you with open arms just because you made one phone call, or sent home a nice letter. Building real, true trust takes a lot of time and repeated tries, before some families really internalize that we are authentically here to take care of their child. And something to think about also is that many families in marginalized communities actually carry a history of disrespect or trauma, from school staff in the past. So when parents are not responsive, it's definitely not because they don't care, but it could be that we just haven't proven ourselves yet, um, as being people that can be trusted. Um, so, oftentimes anger or withdrawal of a caregiver can occur because, there could be perceptions of inequities, feeling that the needs of the child have not been met, or that their power as a parent has been threatened. So there could be all sorts of reasons as to why, you're getting that sense of, not, parents not being responsive. So we really have to do the work of setting aside assumptions about, the caregivers and the communities that they live in, because that will set the stage as to how we even initiate the relationship. Um, it's really important to realize that our parents are not one homogenous group. They're very, very unique. We have parents that have low print literacy levels, that are experiencing homelessness, parents that have complex job situations, parents that are culturally and linguistically diverse, um, parents that have limited or no English, parents that are immigrants or refugees. They have blended families, some who are incarcerated caregivers, some parents who are CEOs of companies, single parents, parents that are trying to juggle, raising younger kids. I mean, it's just the spectrum is immense, right? So, um, the the only way we can respect parents is if we choose to learn more about them. If we continue to learn about them as caregivers and their students, and that requires reaching out our hands and oftentimes being the first one to do so. So it has to start with us. Um, and, that's the only way that we will slowly, brick by brick, build that trust. All right, so now that we are done with those quick principles, let's move on to some solid tips. So the first thing to kind of think about is first impressions, okay? So because we are virtual, it is even now more than ever important to start off on the right foot. The first thing I'll say here is that welcome home call to the family is crucial. Okay, that really sets a tone. It helps the family, realize that you are genuinely interested in learning more about them, and that you're here. They hear your voice. It makes a big difference. So I've just outlined a couple questions that you could potentially ask during the call. These are really great, conversation starters, and I'll have that to you in a document form as well later on. The other thing I will say is, a survey or an intro email is really helpful as well. Really, the premise here is that initial interaction is really, really, really critical for setting the tone for the rest of the year. Okay, um, it sets a very lasting impression. So, this is important not just for, your child or for your student, but also for the parent to, know that, hey, like, this teacher cares about me as well. Um, Parents are often asking, like, does this teacher even want me involved? Are they open to my questions and concerns? Are they looking out for my best interest of the child? So these questions, they're thinking about them, and it just kind of helps if you go ahead and call and, alleviate some of their concerns. Um, I'll also mention, it's important to, like I mentioned earlier, honor parents' unique, ways of contributing. So saying, something like, at the end of the day, you are your child's first teacher. I am, interested in learning more about your child. Saying things like that, it really shows that you really value the parent's knowledge. You're really wanting to share the parent's toolbox, right? Um, and then the last thing is just reflect on how we use positive language. Just thinking about how we start and end emails. Do we just get straight to the point, or do we add a little bit of fluff? Um, because those things, they might seem very minor, but they play a really huge part in how teachers or how student parents perceive us. Okay, so the second thing is communication. Super, super important. The first thing is, just find out the best ways and the methods and times to communicate to parents. Because we are all in this virtual crazy world right now, parents have really strange schedules. You'll have different schedules. So, either on that call or that survey that you send in the first week of school, make sure you ask when can I contact you? What's a good time? And thinking about, non-conventional methods as well, because some parents might not be comfortable with texting. Some parents might not be comfortable showing their face over video. So, just kind of be a little creative there. The second is, just a general principle is always take a never stop trying approach. Regardless of how much or how little interaction you're getting, just keep staying persistent. It's not because when they're being unresponsive, it's not because parents don't care. There could be other life circumstances. So, assume best intent. Um, Finally, connecting parents to student learning is really important. Parents want to know what is happening in the classroom. Um, and, parents are getting lots of communication, so please pick one specific day and time to communicate your main points to the entire class. Okay, so lastly, how do I connect with non-English speakers? Miss Jumana Haddad is your